My name is Margaret Sullivan. I'm 75 years old. 55 years ago, my parents kicked me out of the house for getting pregnant at 18. One suitcase. November rain. My mother pointing at the door, telling me I was dead to them. That same night, they signed papers erasing me from the family, me and any child I might ever have. I kept those papers. I kept everything. For decades, I was invisible. They told everyone I had moved abroad. They built their spotless reputation on the grave of the daughter they threw away. Then last week, they showed up at my door, desperate, smiling, demanding to meet their grandson. A grandson they had been bragging about for months to 200 of their most powerful friends. They offered me $250,000. They had no idea the grandson they had been promising everyone did not exist. And what they found instead would tear apart everything they had spent 50 years building. Portland, Oregon, November 1969. I was 18, the youngest child of Richard and Diane Sullivan. On paper, we were the perfect family. My father owned a successful real estate law practice. My mother had been president of every committee that mattered. We sat in the front pew every Sunday. But every family has its hierarchy, and I learned mine early. My older brother was the pride. My sister was the beautiful one who never questioned anything. I was the surprise, born late, the child my mother never quite forgave for disrupting her plans. I met the boy who would become the father of my child at the public library. He was kind. He asked if I was okay when no one else did. When the pregnancy test showed 2 lines, he did not run. He held my hands and said we would figure it out together. I wanted to believe him. I knew my parents. Their first question would not be, "Are you okay?" It would be, "What will people think?" I told them at Sunday dinner. The table went quiet. When I said the father's name and that he worked at an auto shop, the silence lasted 11 seconds. Then my father stood. "If you keep that baby, you are no longer part of this family." By 9:15 that night, I was standing on the front porch with one suitcase, rain soaking through my sweater. My mother opened the door and pointed outside. My brother and sister watched from the upstairs window. Neither came down. A neighbor, Margaret, saw me from her window and took me in. 2 weeks later, the boy and I moved to a tiny studio above a laundromat in another city. My parents had their lawyer draw up papers the night they threw me out. Certified mail. The document stated that I forfeited all inheritance rights and that the family bore no legal or moral obligation to me or any child born to me. I kept that paper for 55 years. My daughter was born the following summer. She came into the world screaming, and I thought, good, scream. Don't ever let anyone make you small. The first years were pure survival. Then the boy who had stood by me was killed in an accident when our daughter was still small. I was alone with a child, almost no money, and no one to call. I could have given up. I didn't. I started doing small design projects for people who could not afford professionals. Someone saw talent. Years of work, mentorship, and stubbornness later, I built a real business. By the time I was in my 60s, the company had employees, real revenue, and a reputation. My daughter grew up fierce and steady. We never had the family that threw us away. We built our own. Then last week they showed up. Tuesday evening, I turned onto my street and saw the black Mercedes with Oregon plates. My heart stopped. Richard and Diane Sullivan, my parents, standing at my front door after 55 years. Gray hair, careful posture, the same rigid way of holding the world at a distance. They knew about my son. They had read an old magazine profile that mentioned my child and assumed the rest. They had been telling their church friends, their Rotary friends, the mayor, that they had a successful grandson continuing the family name. Now they needed him for their 50th anniversary celebration, 200 guests, live stream for the church. They offered $250,000 and a place back in the family trust if I would bring the grandson, stay 3 hours, and take photos. I let them into the house. I still don't know why. My father sat evaluating the floors and the artwork like a property. My mother perched on the edge of the sofa. When my adult daughter came down the stairs, the room went still. The grandson they had invented did not exist. The grandchild they had erased before she was born was standing right in front of them. My daughter looked at them and said the words I had never quite managed. "I'm the grandchild you never wanted to meet. The one you tried to make disappear." They tried to adjust the narrative on the spot. A secret granddaughter studying abroad. A surprise reunion. My daughter laughed without humor. "Do you even hear yourselves?" I told them to leave. At the door, my mother said this was an opportunity to heal. I watched them walk to the Merceds the same way they had walked away from me in the rain decades earlier. That night, I opened the fireproof box I had kept for 55 years. The notarized letter of disinheritance, the exact language that reduced my unborn child to any dependence thereof. I photographed every page. I called the old neighbor who had taken me in. She still had the security camera stills from that night. A teenage girl standing in the rain at 9:17 p.m., timestamp clear, address partially visible. She said she had been waiting 55 years for someone to ask. My brother called the next day. He had been a coward that night and every year after. He told me the invented grandson story had come from our mother, who had misread the magazine piece and built an entire fantasy. He and my sister would be at the anniversary party. If I decided to come, I would not be alone. My father called with a final offer. Money, reinstatement, 1 week. When I refused, his voice turned cold. "If you don't come, you will never have another opportunity to be part of this family." I reminded him he had said the same thing 55 years ago. Then I hung up. Saturday evening. The Crystal Ballroom, chandeliers, white tablecloths, 200 guests, a camera crew already live streaming for the church. My parents stood on the raised platform glowing with the confidence of people who believed they had won. I walked in with my daughter beside me. Heads turned. Whispers started. My mother saw me first. My father's speech faltered. I climbed the steps, took the microphone, and spoke. "My name is Margaret Sullivan. I am Richard and Diane's youngest daughter, the one they told you went to Europe 55 years ago. I did not go to Europe. On a November night, they discovered I was pregnant and threw me out of the house. They had their lawyer draft papers disowning me. They told me I was dead to them. For decades, they pretended I did not exist." I held up the notarized letter to the camera. "This document says the family has no obligation to me or any dependence thereof. That dependence is my daughter, your granddaughter, standing right here. The grandson you have been telling your friends about does not exist. You invented him." My father reached for the microphone. I kept it. "You came to my house last week offering $250,000 to parade a fictional grandson at this party. I did not come for money. I came because I am done being erased." My brother and sister stepped onto the stage and said the truth out loud. The old neighbor stood and confirmed what she had seen from her window. The room erupted. Phones came out. The live stream comments exploded. The mayor left. Church board members followed. I looked at my parents and spoke the last thing I needed to say. "I am not going to sue you. I am keeping the papers as a reminder of who you really are. But if you ever spread lies about me or my daughter again, every document I have becomes public. I have the letter. I have the photographs. I have witnesses. And now I have 200 more." I handed the microphone back and walked out with my daughter. Outside, the air was cold and clean. For the first time in 55 years, I felt like I could breathe. The fallout was swift. The clip spread. Guests left the party in clusters. My father resigned his church position. The Rotary Club reviewed its membership. New clients found my company because of the story. My brother and sister came to my house for the first time in decades. We talked for hours. It was imperfect and complicated and real. My mother called once. Her voice was smaller than I had ever heard it. She said she had watched the video 11 times. She was not asking for forgiveness. She just wanted to hear my voice. I told her I was not ready to forgive her and might never be. Then I did not hang up. Thanksgiving that year, my table was full. My daughter, my mentor, the neighbor who had once opened her door. My brother and sister and their children. The family I had built, not the one that had thrown me away. If you are still listening, hear this. 55 years ago, I was a scared teenager standing in the rain watching my parents' taillights disappear. I thought my life was over. I was wrong. I had the people who chose me. And eventually, I had myself, the version of me who stopped asking for permission to exist. You do not need their validation to know your value. Setting boundaries is not revenge. It is survival. And sometimes, the family you build is stronger than the one you were born into. Thank you for watching Hidden Truth Revenge. All characters, conflicts, and events are fictional and created only for entertainment and educational purposes. We hope it reminds you that you are allowed to stop being invisible.